Good morning. I know some of you guys have been wondering why we haven't churned out an awful lot of videos lately. To be quite honest with you, I've been very busy despite the fact that the videos haven't been coming out. You know, we got a whole bunch of new equipment in, thanks to our sponsors, to Powermatic and a few other people. And we're just trying to get set up. You know, we got to have material delivered. We got an awful lot of different things to accomplish. And, you know, I just wanted to show you the shop and show you some of the equipment and, you know, just really get back together. We're trying to get it back on track here, and I'm sure we're going to. Well, during the last couple of weeks, we've had a tremendous response to our Project ORCA merchandise on our online store, and we're really thankful for that. That's going to make a big difference in how fast we can come along at this project because, you know, we need the funding. And one of the things that's been really popular on our online store is these plaques that we're making up with original pieces of ORCA. You know, they are original pieces of ORCA, and I'm here today to introduce my friend John Conway, who is the president of the Catboat Restoration Foundation. And, you know, that group is dedicated, completely dedicated to the location and restoration of historic wooden boats. So I'm going to turn it over to John right now.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks for inviting me in. But let me give a little bit of the history. I think you know this already, but a lot of your viewers may not know this. So it turns out when Spielberg shot the movie, there were two Orcas made, right? Orca 1 was the boat that they shot all the boat underway, the boat operating and so forth and so on. That was Orca 1. Orca 2, which they referred to as the special effects boat, was the one that they had rigged especially so that they could sink it and float it and sink it and float it as many times as they needed. And that's the one that a lot of people are excited about because that's the one that the shark jumps up on, and that's the one where the shark eats people, and where Brody shoots the shark and it explodes. So that's the boat that's very excited. Now, what happened to these boats, right? Well, Orca 1, after the shoot, was shipped back to Universal theme parks. And it sat there for years.
In California.
In California, never maintained.
All the way across country.
Never maintained, although in a recent documentary, Spielberg says he used to sit in the cabin to soothe his nerves. But that boat sat there for years and years. They never maintained it, and it slowly disintegrated. And probably a few years ago, they decided to scrap it. They saved some of the pieces. And so the steering wheel and the fighting chair are currently in the museum. I think it's the Academy of Motion Pictures Museum in Hollywood. So if you want to see parts of Orca 1, that's on display in the museum. So then the question is, whatever happened to Orca 2? And I brought some photos. We'll show you that the Orca 2 was abandoned in an area of Martha's Vineyard called Menemsha, and we'll show a picture, a larger photo of this, and this was back just after they shot the movie. It looked like this. This was the Orca 2 abandoned. This was the special effects boat. This is the one that had all this excitement and all the interesting shots, and that was left there by the production company. And I think they promised probably the folks at Martha's Vineyard it would be removed, but it was never removed. And so over the years, it came apart. And this is what it looks like, what it looked like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, as it was all coming apart. So back in 2011, a good friend of mine at Martha's Vineyard said, I know you're a Jaws fan, and if you want to get a souvenir of this boat, I think the good people in Chilmark and Menemsha are about to remove the thing from the inlet. He said, come on over. So I went over with my son, and this is what we found. We found the boat, basically the bones of the boat sitting there, and you had at low tide, it would expose. At high tide, it was underwater. And so my son and I wrestled a couple of pieces off the boat, and those are the pieces that we have. And so when I heard that Tips from a Shipwright was building an Orca, I thought you might be interested in having a piece of Orca, because the legend is that if you take a piece of the original boat and embed it in the new boat, it transfers the soul of the boat. And I think I saw you say this on a video.
Right.
So So I brought the pieces in, and then you came up with this idea of, why don't we use this as a fundraising tool? We'll make up these plaques.
Was that my idea?
I think it was your idea. I think it was your idea. And so we started this process of slicing up the little pieces that I have and putting them on plaques. And as you said, I think so far the response has been phenomenal.
Been terrific.
Because if you're truly a Jaws fan, and you want this touchstone, a relic of ORCA 2, which was the one that the shark jumped on, this is where to get them. And we only have enough wood, I think you said, for maybe 75 or 100 plaques.
Something like that.
And we've sold a number already. So tell your viewers that if they're interested, now is the time to buy a plaque. And,
I just think it's something that every Jaws fan should have, because you hang it on the wall, in your hallway or wherever you want to put it, and you just come across it every day, and it reminds you. Not that we really need reminders about sharks and everything these days.
That's right.
These days, sharks and everything about Jaws and ORCA has become very, very popular. So
exactly.
The thing to do is to jump on with that and order one of these plaques, and I think you'll be happy about it.
And again, the monies are going to go towards the build of the new ORCA. And I have to say, I'm hoping, please, that Universal Studios, Universal Theme Parks, decides to acquire this vinyl boat when you build it,
right,
and have it on display, because a number of people that I've talked to have said they go to the theme park and they miss the fact that they can't actually go on to ORCA and see what it was like. And I'd love to think that maybe Spielberg supports it or whatever. So I think if you can tell your viewers to reach out to Universal and say, please bring Lou's boat to the theme park, because I think that would be a really
I think it
really
would be
fun
too.
I think it'd be a fun thing.
I think it would be too. One of the biggest problems with the building of ORCA is that we have no plans whatsoever, no lines drawn, just no plans. So we've been working with pictures of ORCA, and quite a few pictures actually, and trying to get, comparisons from one thing that we can get a measurement on and compare it to another thing. And, we've determined the length of the boat and the beam of the boat and different things like that. So we've been working at that quite a bit, but, we've got to get the plans complete, and we're going to move right on to the lofting of the boat. So we've got our loft floor all set up, and we really have to thank Chris Boulter from Boulter Plywood, because Boulter Plywood donated all the plywood that it takes to build that loft floor. There was 12 sheets of half-inch plywood and 12 sheets of Luan quarter-inch plywood. We're going to do the drawings on the quarter-inch plywood because it's just easier to move it around afterwards and save it and different things like that. So, that's what we're up to. The other thing we have to do is thank Arnold Lumber for donating the 2x4s that went under the plywood. So we really, really, really have to thank Boulter Plywood and Arnold Lumber for supporting us. We also want to thank Rick Cormier from the Woodworkers Guild for delivering the plywood. He actually picked the plywood up and delivered it to us. So, we're really thankful about that, and we're hoping to be involved with the Woodworkers Guild quite a bit more. The next thing I want to do is introduce you or show you my loft floor. Now, I had to put a loft floor down because I'm going to need to loft the boat. One of the reasons for lofting at all is to correct the mistakes and inaccuracies that you get on the drawing board. If I tried to make the molds for this boat with the measurements off of my drawing board, they wouldn't all come out exactly right. We're going to put a mold every 3 feet. Now, that's probably not necessarily the way other Novies were built. They were built around just a couple of molds, but they were building them one right after another, and they knew exactly how to go about it. For me, the best thing for me to do is do like they do in the United States, basically, and that's to set up many more molds and have the boat lofted first, and that way it's just easier to build. So that's what we're up to. And like I said, Boulter Plywood donated this plywood to us. Fantastic. They've become, a real support to our business here, and you know, we're really happy about that. The other thing I want to show you is that we painted this whole loft floor because, you know, I have to put pencil lines down on it, and I want the pencil lines to contrast with the surface quite a bit, because that way I don't have to press down on the pencil and draw real heavy lines. So basically we've painted the loft floor, and I used Total Boat wet edge topside paint, and the reason why I've done that is because it sands very well. If I put down a pencil line and I want to get rid of it, you know, I want it to be able to be sanded off or erased with an eraser without having any traces of it left, and there's just no problem. This paint I've found works really well for this situation, so that's what we've done. And you know, the next thing for us to do is put a grid on this, you know, lines every foot and every 3 feet. So there's quite a bit of work left to do before the loft floor is absolutely complete, but we're on to it. And the other thing I want to do is show you our patron board again. Now, I just have to say that we're incredibly thankful to our patrons, because it's what's keeping the doors open. Actually, it's paid the rent, you know, and just keeping the doors open. You know, we really haven't gotten past keeping the doors open, to tell you the honest truth, but I think we're starting to get there. So we want to thank patron. We want to thank the patrons that we have. Hopefully we'll get new patrons and be able to continue the whole program. So that's basically what we're up to.